Joining me now to talk more about this case is criminal defense attorney David P. Shapiro. He joins us via Skype from San Diego. Hi, David.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we have heard Congressman Hunter's explanation for changing his plea, but it's essentially a completely different story from what he was saying in the past, which is that this was all a politically motivated smear campaign. So how did we get here?
Well, we got here a couple of different ways. I mean, things started unraveling for his defense when his wife decided to take a guilty plea and to work out a deal with the prosecution, the U.S. Attorney's Office here in San Diego, to arguably cooperate against her ex-husband. So things started then. As we got closer to trial was originally scheduled for later in January. He faced the harsh reality that in all likelihood he was going to be convicted of some, if not many, of the 60 counts against him, and opted for this plea agreement today.
So if he was your attorney, if you were his attorney, what is the conversation that you would have with him when you find that his wife has pleaded guilty? What are the complications there?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, remember, his wife was the former, I believe, the treasurer or the secretary of the campaign. So she knows a lot about how the money was diverted from point A to point B, in addition to being his wife or his spouse, and intimately, obviously, involved with him for years. My conversation with him at that moment up to today would have been, this is exactly why we told you to keep your mouth closed about the witch hunt stuff and about how you feel it was politically motivated and throwing your wife under the bus and throwing your kids under the bus, because this is going to come back to hurt you in the end, and it may very well do that when he's sentenced, I believe, in March.
So this might be some speculation, but how does a split like that happen? How does he end up in the public eye saying something completely different after his wife has pleaded guilty?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, he's been outspoken, whether you agree with what he says or not, he's been outspoken to a fault. And I had commented on this throughout the course of the case is, putting political differences or political similarities aside, attorney to client, we tell all of our clients, do not make any statements on social media, do not make any statements to the press, especially someone of his celebrity, so to speak, as well-known family here in San Diego, both he and his father. It seems like while this investigation was pending, every single thing he said was something that could have just basically fanned the flames to this investigation. And again, he may be hearing those words, whether it's from the prosecutor or whether it's from the judge, when he's ultimately sentenced here in March.
So let's talk about that. What kind of prison time could he be facing? What is going to be his punishment?
Well, the maximum that he is facing under the plea agreement, I believe, is up to 5 years. However, my understanding of the plea agreement at this point in time is that he's facing somewhere between 8 and 14 months in custody. Now, it could be significantly less than that. That'll ultimately be up to the judge. But in all likelihood, he's not going to get much more, if more than a year in custody.
So how does this affect his future and the future of that seat that he was holding? Do you think this will have much impact, or will he be able to move on from this?
Well, having lived here in San Diego, for over a decade, I know how this name resonates with the people of San Diego, both he and his father. And, whereas most people accused of a crime are innocent until proven guilty, I think that, Duncan Hunter, a lot of his supporters really did believe that. Usually it's a flip situation. If it's someone else, if it's a common person, it's, oh, they're guilty until they're proven innocent, no matter what the law says. But I think what's going to happen here is that some of his staunchest supporters are going to realize that he pled guilty and he admitted a crime. He is now a felon. And that's going to have a big impact on how things resolved here with that open seat, what'll likely be an open seat, whether he resigns or whether he ultimately gets, booted out from his position. He narrowly won that seat the last time he was reelected. It was very, very close. Despite being under indictment, he barely won that seat.
Well, we may not have to wait too long to see how this plays out, right? A lot of times these legal proceedings can drag out, but in his case, it looks like he'll be sentenced by March. So we will find out shortly. David, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
A pleasure.